You're on the line with Jamal Meeks, former Indiana Hoosier, number 23, 1992. And I'm on the beat with Jim Coyle.
Today's guest is brought to you by Reynolds Family Dentistry of Sellersburg. You need $1 million smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you'll get with Reynolds Family Dentistry.
You gonna know my name.
Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat with Coyle O'Leary, coming to you, of course, from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, powered by Rivals. Make sure you go to Indiana Rivals. Sign up if you haven't already. Lots of things to do there, conversations to be had with former players like Todd Leary, like Jordan Holes, like Charlie Miller, like Mitchell Page. Fun things to do. Waiting to get Patrick. He's probably eating some wings right now. Yeah, Pat's up, by the way. I'm talking to Brandy, his wife. She said, yeah, he's up. I'm like, well, we're trying to reach him. She said, oh, he might be outside. So we'll have Jake try to reach out to him again. But
the guy sleeps in his garage half the time.
But, yeah, I mean, man, everybody remembers, if you were a fan back then, that golly, when you see him went down, it just you guys had so many great shooters, but anytime you lose a great one, it was like, wow, because he was such an integral part of that offense with you guys.
Yeah, and Pat was the thing about Pat that was kind of unique is he was sneaky athletic in that, I mean, he could really jump, believe it or not. And most people didn't really know that because he didn't do it very often. I mean, he was known as a shooter, but he was sneaky athletic. And at 6'5" or 6", I mean, he was a tough guy for other people to defend. And plus, not to mention, and you've heard me say this on the show before. I mean, if you're playing a game of horse and I got one guy that's going to shoot a 19-foot jumper, I even as good a shooter as I feel like I am, I would give that shot to Pat, and I would bank on him to make that shot. That's how good he is. So
Well, I can hear him talking.
If he's coming on now, I'm not going to say anything else good about him. I promise. That'll be it.
Well, we waited for him, and here he is, the man of the hour, Pat Graham. Patrick, sir, how are you, brother?
I'm doing good. How are you?
We're good. Of course, Todd is here. He's saying nothing but great things about you, of course.
That's a first.
Well, that's what I said. When you weren't on, I said a bunch of good things, but now that you're on, that's over for sure.
Well, Patrick, first of all, welcome back, man. We're glad you're
I got to go through near-death things to get anything good out of you.
I told Brandy you faked a heart attack just so that you could get my attention and get me to call you down there every day.
Well, I tell you what, I did a hell of a job with it. I will tell you that.
How you feeling? What's going on?
I'm feeling better. I know a lot of people know about it, but I was on I guess it was 2.5 weeks ago on a Saturday, and I went on a bike ride. After basketball season's over, I love riding bike, and I was on about a 9-mile bike ride, and on a bike about mile 8. I was about a mile from my house, and it hit the fan, and I knew I was in trouble. And got home, Brandy and Kate called 911. I was probably the ambulance and everything, paramedics and everybody got here to my house probably within less than 5 minutes, and I was in surgery in 30 minutes.
Wow.
And
that's crazy.
I've never wanted surgery so bad in my life. So it was pretty painful, a lot of pressure, a lot of pain. And yeah, it was scary. There was no doubt about it. There's no other way to sugarcoat it or say it any other different way. It was beyond scary. Beyond.
Well, first of all, let's say we're so happy that things worked out the way they did, the positive way. So gladly that you're here talking to us. But man, what a scary thing to go to, like you just mentioned. And I know it had to be just horrible for the family, for Brandy and all the kids and all that. But so have you had to change your diet now? Because we know you love wings, man. You're a big wings fan. You got to do any changes there?
I've done. If what I went through in those 3 hours didn't change you a little bit, you're not normal. So it's I've always exercised and stuff like that, but never really thought about my diet as far as that's concerned. Being diabetic for almost 40 years, that's basically what the doctors explained to me. Look, you've been diabetic for 39 years, and the number one issue with diabetes is heart problems. And I just never thought, being, granted 25 years out, but being a former athlete, being active, I just never thought the heart problems would be a problem for this diabetic. And I run really well diabetes wise, and my HbA1cs and all that stuff has always been good. And so I just never thought it would happen to me. I mean, I was just that guy. I'm 49 years old. There's no way this is going to happen to me. And I got smacked in the face. So it wasn't anything where I should have went in and had it checked or anything like that. I go to, my son and I both go to diabetologists once every 4 months. And, you have blood drawn, you have, all that stuff, that work done. It was just like, they call it the silent killer for a reason. And it almost got me, so it's kind of, you learn and live, and thank heavens I'm living.
Yeah, that's definitely the best side to be on, without.
Yeah, no doubt.
Sure.
And obviously we're all not just as Indiana fans. I know people know that we're friends, but obviously we're glad from that scenario. Moving from that, you have a really interesting scenario and perspective, because you were, assistant coaching at Wrights Memorial, and you had a son. I know you have two. One was a sophomore and one was a senior. But to have the season cut short, or not cut short, ended the way that it was so abruptly in Cade's senior year, like that had to be very difficult around the household, didn't it?
Well, I tell you what, I hate to say it. You and I have talked about it. Yes, you and I, and we all are basketball fans. Sometimes it's very hard. I sound like grandpa here, but it's very hard. Basketball is not what basketball once was. And for me personally, being almost a 50-year-old man, I'm not saying in any way, shape, or form that basketball back in the day was better than it is today. That's not what I'm saying. It's just my way of thinking and what I like watching and what I like doing and how I like working with it. It has changed. And, kids today obviously didn't understand what it was 20, 30 years ago. They weren't even born then. But the style, the importance, the loyalty, all that stuff, things have changed so much over the years. And when this happened, I honestly didn't think it was as big a deal. Todd, you and I know, if this had happened our senior years, I mean, there would be towns shut down because of it. Not because of the Corona thing, because of basketball was shut down.
Right.
And it's a big deal, and it's a huge deal to these kids and these athletes in baseball and basketball and whatever players. But, I mean, there would be people jumping off the bridge back in our day. In small towns USA, especially in the state of Indiana, I mean, it would have just been devastating. And it's a different style, it's a different type, but it's also for the kids that are seniors this year. I feel a hell of a lot worse for baseball players and the spring sports than I do the basketball players. I mean, they got most of the damn season out of the way.
Right.
Now, granted, the tournament, absolutely, 100%. But I mean, those baseball kids and that those sports are the ones that I really feel bad for. And it's the never question out there. They don't know what they're doing next year. Hell, I don't even know if college is starting next year. So you're just kind of in this cesspool, this waiting game, and really nobody knows anything.
Yeah, it's a waiting game, just like you said. We don't know where it's going to go, and what it's. And you mentioned the spring sports. At least for the college athletes, they were granted that extra year of eligibility. You can't do that for a high school kid, so they just lose out.
And there's very few high school kids that would want to stay. There's
very few parents that would want their high school kids to stay.
I get college a little bit, but I mean, if you ask my son to go back and play his senior year again, he'd be like, "You're crazy." And I'll be honest with you, we'd probably be like that too. I mean, we're off to the races. We're going to IU, and so I feel, you know, I'm good friends with down here in Evansville, USI's baseball coach Tracy Archuleta, and that's the thing he says. He goes, "These, it's the college kids you really feel bad for." I mean, high school kids. I think parents and fans and people like that, administration, make a bigger deal of it. But I mean, you know, probably 99% of the high school kids are like, "Hey, good, we're off to the next chapter of our life, which is college." So, you know, you can get over it a little bit quicker, but the college kids feel awful for.
Cade didn't. He's been mentioned. Cade. He did have a good year. I saw he just got an award from the Kiwanis Club, and then you guys had a really unique situation this past season where you guys got to play Bedford. Damon's son was playing, so and unfortunately, it was just a bad day for that to happen. It was the same day as Bob Knight's return to Indiana.
Yeah.
But all that stuff going on. Talk about all that playing against Damon's son, all the while Bob Knight is returning 25 miles up the road.
I'll be honest with you, Damon and I had more fun than what was going on up in Bloomington. I thought it was good that Coach Knight come back. I mean, it's a long time coming, and you know, it's kind of like let bygones be bygones and be done with it. And yeah, it was kind of weird because we were in Bedford, 30-40 minutes away, and a friend of mine, his little boy, I always drive up on my own, and he was in the car with me, sixth grader. And when we got done with the game, I told him, I said, "Get on the radio and find the game." And I had no clue what was going on. I mean, I kind of get locked in a high school game, and I don't really know what else is going on in the world. But so he finds the score of the game on radio. And we were down like 11 or 12 and started the second half. And he was like, "You think Coach Knight come back?" And I'm like, "I don't have any clue." And so they finally started talking about it. And I was like, "Well, guess he did." And the building's still standing and all that stuff. So I guess it all worked out. Lightning didn't strike. And, you know, everything worked out for the best, which, you know, when I got home and I saw some of the video and stuff, it was pretty neat. And like I said, I'm glad it's over and I'm glad it's done. And like everyone, Indiana, the basketball program, Coach Knight, the Knights, Pat, everybody can move on and be done with it. And the soap opera drama has ended.
Yeah, I agree with you. Todd, did you get Pat his jacket yet?
Did you ever pick up your jacket, Pat?
No, I didn't. That was the only thing I was jealous about. I said, "Man, everybody got those dang things, and I didn't show up and didn't get mine." But yeah, I saw those. It was funny. But it was, like I said, that was neat to see a lot of former guys coming back. And look, I mean, we all know, like it's not. I'm not breaking a story here. We know Coach Knight is not in the best of health. Is that age? Is that something else? I don't really know that. But it was, like I said, it was good for him. You know, he can be as honored as they come, and maybe he doesn't agree with me, and quite frankly, that's okay. But I think it was good for him to come back and get some fresh love from, you know, IU. And like I said, I felt better, not so much the former players even night. I felt better for the old time fan, you know. And I always said, you know, there's a lot of fans in this world that if IU fans in this world, if Bob Knight said it was 3:00 in the afternoon, people would change their clocks. And those are the people that I feel good about that saw him come back. You know, I kind of feel for those people more than anyone.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many stories I heard from people saying, you know, it's kind of sad to say, but it's also right along the lines of what you're saying of how important he was to a lot of people. Because I can't tell you how many people I talked to that said, you know, I wish my dad was still alive to have seen this happen. And I'm like, it's not that historic of an event, but to them it was, and to their parents it was, and so. Yeah, I mean it was a cool thing, and you're right. Like I'm glad that I got to be there. I'm glad I didn't have something else going on like you did. Obviously, there's no way I would have missed coaching one of my son's games if that was a situation. So nobody blames you in any way. But it was cool seeing the guys who you and I watched grow up and play with Whitman and Isaiah and some of those guys. I mean. We see a lot of them all the time, but when that many guys come back and make that big a deal of it, it was nice to close that book and that page and move on, and now we don't have to worry about it anymore.
Yes, yeah.
Now you've got two sons, Pat. Kate, of course, just finished up, but you've got another one. I'm on a mission here. Todd's son, Will, has got another senior year coming to Carmel. You played Bedford last year at Damon, so I want to see a Memorial Carmel matchup, a Leary Graham matchup.
Hey, well, I don't want to cut on Carmel at all because I don't have anything against Carmel. But if it had been where Montrose and Leary went, I could say, that type of school, they don't come down to the level of Southern Indiana. I mean, that would be way below them to ever play a school from down south.
I hear it every day. Trust me, I know.
I usually disagree with most of the things you say, but you're accurate on this one. Yeah, we don't waste our time going down there.
Floyd Central. I mean, Floyd Central. This, the Hicks School from down south. I mean, those schools up top, up there, they don't reek down here. I mean, they're not gonna. This is below that school up there. Those schools up there. We
welcomed you up to Market Square. We welcomed you up to Market Square to play us. You just chose not to play us.
Yeah. I agree with you. I still think about that freaking game daily. Trust me.
You know what's funny, Pat, is I found a box of DVDs my mom and dad had made a long time ago, and I found a box of DVDs, and it had both games in it from the semifinal that day. And I watched your guys' game with Kokomo like 4 times about a week ago, and it was I still to this day don't know how in the world you guys didn't win that game. If you played it again 10 times, you'd have won 10 times. It was
weird. It was and it wasn't like when we were in semi-state, kind of small world here, but I'm sorry, sectional, Jeffersonville, whoever it was, I think it was Jeffersonville, and they were always pretty good. And then, we had to beat Bedford and Bailey in regional. And then we get to semi-state, and it's the number 1 team in the state, Terre Haute South, with McGee and Stevie Richardson. And it was the first time ever that this happened, but even at IU, when we played the Indiana Classic, the Hoosier Classic, there was like 1 decent team plus us and then 2, just bad teams. And you always prepared for all 3 because you never knew how the second game was going to turn. And when we played at semi-state, we were playing Paoli, and it was Evansville Memorial against Terre Haute South. And Terre Haute South gets upset first game. And so we're like, this is over. Like, don't fall down getting to the court.
Right.
And we beat Paoli, and then we beat Memorial in the championship. And it was almost like, did you ever overlook someone? No. But it was I think our concentration lacked just a little bit. But we were thinking we're going to play, you guys, or what was it, South Bend? And I said, I won't say we overlooked Kokomo, but Kokomo comes out and they beat the Pacers that day in the first half. And they just played their tails off, and they were really good, and we couldn't have laid a bigger egg. And then second half we caught up, but it was too little too late. But
I said, I
thought we were the only team, truthfully, that could have given Montrose some issues just because we had some size. No one else had any size.
Yeah, I've always said I wanted to see Montrose play against the Gibson brothers, but I didn't want to see Montrose play against the Gibson brothers. It's easy to say because it didn't happen.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the weird thing. It's like, we were all, it's like I said, I always got to play off guard in high school because of our high school size. I mean, it wasn't because I mean, we had two guys bigger than I was.
Right.
And so it was kind of a blessing in disguise, but yeah, that's one game that sucks. And I think about it quite a bit, and I'm never going to get it freaking back. So,
well, I've got it on rewind. It plays
no, I don't want
to
to watch the damn thing.
Hey, Pat, also the Pat Graham Court, has that been dedicated yet?
No, it was
supposed to be last weekend, right?
That's almost embarrassing for me but when they called me and asked me to do that, I was kind of like, I mean, yeah, if that's what you all want, but I think it was actually scheduled for, and I'm going to have this date off, but it was like April 4th.
Yeah, it was last Saturday.
It was like this. And so
Todd was going to be there.
I was definitely going.
Oh yeah. I got some buddies that are going to come and have
me and Johnny G were going to be there for sure with
yes.
Pat Graham shirts on. We couldn't wait.
Yeah. I was going to have Johnny play in the New Albany Floyd Central alumni game they were going to have. I was going to see if I could get special guest Johnny in it. But, yeah, it was like, I don't know, a month ago, and I got an alert on my phone 2 weeks ago, and I'm like, there's no way they can do this. And sure enough, they called and said, we're going to have to move it back, blah, blah, blah. And I said, no problem. So, yeah, I said, Romeo gets out of high school, and then he gets out of high school and gets a court named after it. It takes me 30 years. I was a little bit jealous over that, but I didn't know what to say about it,
We're talking about Romeo. There's a court, Romeo Langford Court in New Albany, and of course, Floyd County out in the county. There's one for Pat Graham as well. Pat's has not been dedicated yet. That's okay. That'll make it that much bigger when we get back to it.
Trust me, yours will have nets on it all the time. That one in Jeffersonville won't have nets on it ever.
Well, and that's scary. I mean, when you kind of laugh about it, but I can laugh about it obviously now. But that Saturday when I went in to the hospital, I mean, I come out that evening and I was sitting there. Of course, my wife, my kids, my mom, and my dad, no one could come into the room.
That's
so
insane.
I was there for basically
anyone
5
that knows
days.
your mom and dad knows how crazy that is.
Oh, it was probably the best thing personally, selfishly for me. It was the best thing because I counted them one time. I think I had over 130 text messages in the first and second day I was in the hospital from not only individuals, but groups. And, I think I didn't respond to maybe one or two, and that was for a reason. But that was what got me through 5 days. Trust me. So, I was sitting there on, I guess, Sunday, and I was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do about this court thing? And I'm thinking, damn, you talk about a weird one. If they'd had to do that thing and my butt would have been gone, that wouldn't have been fun. And I don't think I would have wanted to give that to my mom and dad. And I was like, oh man, don't let this happen. Let me get at least out here for that dang thing. Cause that would have been no fun.
Turn into the Pat Graham Memorial Court before they even dedicated it.
I was telling a funny story, Pat. I can't remember. I think you were playing them, but this is about Joe Hinton and when he had a heart attack and they gave him, Pat's former coach, they gave him a wireless microphone so he wouldn't yell, but they had to take it away because all he did was yell through the microphone. Was that when you were playing?
That would have been, yeah. He had, Coach Hinton, I think, had like 2 pacemakers. He had a number of heart problems. And, I would always say, especially when I got out and I was like, Coach, why don't you just walk away, get away? And he's like, yeah, I probably need to do that. Well, he still kept coaching. He helped New Albany girls and he went to Providence and he went to Paoli. I'm like, are you kidding me, dude? Just get out. Like why are you continuing to do this? And then, I'm thinking about coaching again next year. And it's like, I should listen to myself and what I said 25 years ago to him. But yeah, he had a lot of issues, and I truly understand, kind of the, diabetes got me, but stress doesn't help it and all this stuff. And I totally understand it. I totally get it.
Looking at IU basketball, Pat, it kind of keeps there's improvement. A lot of this recruiting class is coming in. A lot of kids that you've seen play from being a high school coach now, Anthony Leal and Trey Galloway and those types. We and Todd talk about it a lot. Those guys are kind of throwbacks to your era.
Yeah. And, hopefully, obviously everyone is a great armchair quarterback, and it's really easy to pick apart either Coach Miller or Coach Crean or Coach Day. It doesn't matter who the coach is. It's easy to pick apart after a game or after a season or whatever. The problem, one of the biggest problems, which has been talked about, is Indiana can't shoot it from the outside the way when Indiana's teams have been good, not just Knights teams, but past teams, any past teams. You have to be able to shoot the basketball. And if you can't shoot the basketball, you've just taken half the court away. And with this class coming in, you don't want to put pressure on them, but it seems like a number of those kids are nice shooters. And just because you can shoot it in high school does not mean you can shoot it in college. That is two different animals. But at least you have an opportunity to have a kid or kids that can put it in the basket from outside, and you have one step up. And that's always been one of my biggest things in the past few years is we still don't have anybody that consistently shoot the basketball. And when you can't do that, that makes basketball really hard.
Yeah, I'm fortunate to be sitting here with two of the best shooters that IU had, and especially with there at the same time. Today, as the game has changed and like the 3-point line continues to move out, are kids adjusting to that as well as they can, or is that just are they finally finding that point to where the level of difficulty is now at the right spot?
It's weird because I can't speak for Todd, but I can only speak for myself. Like when I went and worked out or whatever in high school and junior high or whatever, and you went to the gym and you worked on your ball handling, or you worked on your weightlifting, or you worked on your strength and conditioning, whatever you worked on. I don't care how you worked out, but you always worked on pull-up jump shots, and you worked on some post moves, and you worked on your outside shooting, and you didn't. I go and watch kids work out now on their own, maybe 2 or 3 kids work out, and the majority of the workout is based on the 3-point line. And most high schools have, the guns, that the big net, and it throws it back to you and everything. All that's based on 3-point shooting. And yes, Todd and I could shoot it, and we could shoot to 3, but I'm pretty sure we shot a lot of pull-up jump shots, 15, 16-footers, pull off 1 or 2 dribbles, whatever the case may be. Kids don't do that anymore. And so it's just a different type and different style of game. And I said, even if you watch the NBA and everything, if you go back and watch the old Celtics and Lakers and 76ers back when I loved the NBA, a 16, 17-footer was an 80% shot, if open. And now it's just how deep can you get it? And if you only have to make 1 out of 4 threes versus 2 or 3 2-pointers, and it's this mathematics that are just killing what I consider the game of basketball. I wouldn't say it's killing it; it's changed it so much. And yes, the 3-point line has just completely changed the game of basketball. Completely. Some people like that, and some people don't. I personally don't.
Todd brought that up a lot during the season, after the games, talking about those mid-range jump shots, Todd, how they weren't always taking advantage of that this season.
Yeah, and it is, you can watch – this is why I can't stand watching the NBA, because how many times in a game – we're talking, double-digit times in a game, you'll see a guy drive in the lane and have a wide-open 7-foot shot and kick it out to a guy at the 3-point line, because the analytics are telling them shooting X number of 3-pointers a game is how you win. And that's why I love college basketball, more than the NBA, because it's had more of the mid-range game and all that. And yeah, our forte was shooting 3-pointers, but you put all of us inside the 3-point line, and it was almost a guarantee we were going to make it. And that's just the part of the game that I think when a couple players start to find their rhythm in that mid-range game, I think that's when it'll start to come back. It'll cycle back around again. It'll get, especially them moving the line back to where it is. It'll cycle back into the 2-pointers again.
I agree with that. And the part I hate about basketball, and it doesn't matter if it's the NBA, college, or high school, you just had exactly drive in, and I've got a 7-footer, and this is a pretty good shot, 7-footer, and I'm going to kick it to the 3-point line. Now, let's say back when I played, and I drove it to 7 feet. First off, I was going to shoot that 7-footer. But secondly, if I didn't shoot that 7-footer, I could kick it out to Calvert, Leary, Bailey, Evans. I mean, I start rattling off names, and everyone goes, well, he's a good shooter. He's a good shooter. He's a good shooter. He's a good shooter. I would know who was out there. I'm not going to kick it to Chris Reynolds or Matt Nover. And that's where today's game is. You drive it, and if there's a guy standing out there that shoots 20% from the 3-point line, you're kicking it to that guy. Now, let me get something straight. There is no way a 7-footer that's probably a 70% shot is worse shot than throwing a 3-point shot to a guy that shoots 18% from the 3-point line. And that's the way the game's changed. It's like, just shoot threes. It's not even about if the guy can shoot it or not. It's, when we drove it, we knew exactly who was standing over there. And a lot of times that was a better shot than my 7-footer. But, to kick it to a guy who couldn't shoot it was not. But it's just all about how many threes you get up for the game, not how many free throws you get up for the game, how many threes you get up for the game. And that's the part, unless you have a number of 3-point shooters on the court at the same time, that's the tough part. That's the really tough part.
Dr. J hit us up on the text line, Dr. J Reynolds. I remember following Pat and the Highlanders around because my brother was on the team. Still see a lot of those guys around Floyd County since I was 9. Just like to make those guys feel old. There you go.
Oh, yeah.
No doubt.
Yep.
It worked.
Yesterday, the All-Star team came out, Pat, something that you were a part of, obviously, big time. Talk about the importance of being on that team. Now these kids, since they didn't get to play the game this year, they still announced the team, and just being now you're a lifelong member of that fraternity.
Oh, it was.
They don't even want to get us started on the All-Star game. I know that, Pat. But I talked about the importance of it 30 years later when you're introduced. You're obviously introduced as Mr. Basketball, but you're always introduced as an Indiana All-Star. And that's the importance of it, because I tried to explain to people the actual 2 weeks we spent there wasn't great.
It was the worst experience of basketball I was ever part of.
Oh,
it's
a fact. I told everybody that, and they don't understand it.
And the thing is, it wasn't anyone's fault. I just remember, even in, playing in the McDonald's All-American game, it was awesome because, I thought it was going to be like a pickup game. Like, I'm going to go to this Indiana-Kentucky All-Star thing, Allen Houston, Travis Ford, and all those guys. And those 2 games are just going to get in the way. Like, we're going to play basically open gym for 2 weeks. And I remember Renee Westmoreland and I, being Miss and Mr. Basketball, had to do a lot of the speaking engagements. And I missed a lot of the practices because I had to go to these luncheons. And it was just, I don't know. It was just
miserable.
I remember, I've never written a comment back to anyone until after that All-Star week or those 2 weeks. And Pat Aikman was the guy. And I haven't seen Pat Aikman since back then. And I just told him, I said, it was awful. And it should be the most fun time for the Indiana-Kentucky All-Stars. And there was a lot of handshaking and stuff, and the basketball was the least of anyone's ideas or importance. And I get it, but yeah, it kind of, but it's great for these kids. Here again, I go back to being the negative grandpa. There's kids, and there's one right here in Evansville who is an absolute stud player. And I don't know if I can speak about him, so I'll get in trouble with the NCAA, so I'll leave his name out of it. But I said, he's not going to go to high school his senior year to go to college early. I'm like, Leary and Greg and me and all of us guys back in that day, we didn't even Calvert. I mean, that wasn't even an option. Being on the Indiana All-Star thing was important, or winning Mr. Basketball was important. I mean, we didn't even consider going to IU a year early. And so, I mean, that type of thing's changed quite a bit, or the mentality on that's changed quite a bit. I mean, Todd, when we played at Freedom Hall, correct?
Yep.
We played at Freedom Hall and where the Pacers played.
Market Square.
And, I mean, it was sold out. I mean, both games were sold out.
Right.
And they play this game now is played at Owensboro, maybe.
They move it around. Yeah, they move it around all over the place there.
And again, it's kind of like high school basketball. I mean, 4 years, I don't think I ever played in a gym that was not sold out in 4 years. And that's just the way high school basketball was back then. And now it's not the same deal. And, that Indiana, for the players, it's very important. For the fans, I don't think they look at it as being of importance as the players do.
Yeah,
so it's just a little different.
Well, Pat, man, I cannot thank you enough for taking the time to join us this morning. I'm glad to hear you're feeling better, getting back to being the old Pat Graham of normal. We love to hear that.
Well, I mean, like I said, it's bad that I almost have to die to get on your show, for God's sakes. I mean,
please.
Right? I'm kind of relaxed now. I mean, hell, you can have me on anytime. It's free of charge. I mean, I can do this anytime.
We'll call you tomorrow. Be awake tomorrow.
Open invitation. Yeah, you got to show up. We don't have to send Brandy out chasing you down out in the backyard.
I understand. No, I appreciate you guys having me on. Not a problem.
Thank you, brother. There he is, Pat Graham, the former great. This is Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat with Coyle and Leary. Indiana Sports Beat is now a part of the Rivals Network. You can go to thehoosier.com to sign up. It's free. Catch the show there each day live or at your convenience. You can also like or follow us on Facebook, follow the show's rebroadcast anywhere you podcast. If we're not on a radio station where you live, we should be. Let your local station know they need to carry Indiana Sports Beat with Coyle and Leary, or simply go to thehoosier.com.